Board. You're the only one here, so check.
Yeah, just like clarify what's
Noted. 3, superintendent report.
All right, so per some board questions at the last meeting, got some folks here to share some information with you and give you an opportunity to ask questions. We'll start with Chris Bolton. Chris, you can come up and sit at the table, or you can go to the podium, whatever makes you more comfortable. Chris is going to provide us with a little bit of, how the fall season went, how the winter season is wrapping up, outlook for the spring, and of course, an opportunity for the board members to ask questions about the athletic department.
Yeah, I'll do a little brief fall recap since that was farther back and not everybody has an idea of what happened. I'll go pretty in depth on winter, but we're kind of reaching our postseason or finish season event and do some spring preview. So with fall, some of the highlights were golf won their first, girls golf won their first league championship in school history, which is a big deal. I'm actually working with Flawless right now to get a new banner in the gym that's going to feature just girls. So both boys and girls cross country won league championships, and this is for the second straight year. I think this is a trend that's going to continue for a couple more years, if not longer than that. I was able to put in, we're going to host the league cross-country meet next year, which will be pretty cool to have that here. And hopefully we can get a 3-peat. Colin Hinkleman qualified for the state meet as a sophomore, which was a big deal, so that was kind of one of the big moments of the fall. As far as winter, girls basketball finished up last week. They finished the regular season 15-7, 8-6 in the conference. Some of the highlights of the season was Jenny Broombaugh scored her 1,000th point, which brought her to second all-time on the all-time scoring list. Another project I'm working with Ken right now, and Curtis is kind of helping with this too. We're going to do like honor 1,000-point scorers, which you probably see at a lot of gyms you go to. Pretty much everybody does that. So we're working on that, and something with volleyball and possibly wrestling too to honor in the gym. And Ken's he's working with us on those projects. Some other highlights from girls basketball. Coach Roos won her 150th career game, while the program won its 500th game in school history. They got off to a 7-0 start, which was the best start in school history. Finish wasn't where we wanted it to be, but overall they had a good year. They lost in the first round to Valley View, 53-51. It was a good game back and forth. And all league was last weekend. Jenna Broombaugh got first team, and Michaela Ferks and Addie Case received honorable mention. Also in junior high, 8th grade team advanced to the TRC championship for the second straight year. Ended up failing to fall into Miami East, got second place. Another big deal that I've seen a lot of girls basketball, especially, we were able to fill both 7th and 8th grade teams. A lot of times you'll see in junior high, even on the boys side, people are having to share kids back and forth. We were full 7th and 8th grade, so that's promising going forward in the program. Boys basketball, they finished up regular season. Last weekend finished 5-17, which was an improvement from last year. JV finished 14-8. I think program's got a bright future. A lot of sophomores received a lot of valuable varsity time this year. I think between them and our 8th grade class, we're going to have some pretty good teams in the upcoming year. 8th grade's actually playing tonight in the TRC semifinals at Bethel. Last I checked, I think they were down like 9 or 10 at halftime. I think 19-9. It's a pretty low scoring game, but they're a solid team. I think they can make a comeback in the second half. Boys basketball tournament, they play this Friday. They'll play Arcanum, who they beat in the regular season. This game will be held at Bethel at 8 p.m. So this will be, so with most sports moving to seven division now, it's a little different. Basically, you win one game, you're in a district semifinal. You win 2 games, you're in a district final, which typically in the past you had to win 3 or 4 games. So we win 1 game, most likely we'll play Versailles in the district semi, so that'd be a good deal to get there. They also finished up all league this weekend for voting. Wyatt Kimmel was second team with Levi Broombaugh and Titus Kopp getting honorable mention. And same thing on the boys side as well. We had full squad, 7th and 8th. Even had to make some cuts at the 8th grade level, so Numbers looking good going forward. Wrestling, they competed in every tournament they were in. They played some pretty competitive meets. League, they finished 4th this weekend with Peyton Mayfield and Seth Lowry getting all league. And the way wrestling works, you have to win your weight class for the all league first team. So a little different than other sports. There's no coaches voting. You just got to go out and compete that day. They'll have sectionals this weekend at Versailles. And districts will be March 1st the following weekend. We have plenty of kids that can qualify to districts and maybe even possibly some at the state level. With the current all sports standings, we tallied that up this weekend with all the TRCADs. Our boys are in 4th and our girls are actually in 1st place right now, going into the spring season. For the spring, we got all our coaching staff intact for the most part. We are still looking at a junior high, looking for another junior high track coach. Baseball, looking to have a solid year, just keep improving. Our numbers aren't real great right now. We're looking at the possibility of no JV or limited JV. They have college commit, Wyatt Kimmel, who committed to Schoolcraft a couple weeks ago, which is up in Michigan. It's a pretty good junior college baseball program. Softball, they're kind of the same way. Their numbers are 19 or 20 right now, looking to get up to the mid-20s so they can play a full JV schedule. Still, they'll be a pretty solid team. I think they can compete for a league title this year. And they have Myra Jones, who committed to Edison Community College. Same thing a couple weeks ago. Track, I think we got a league shot on both sides, boys and girls. Plenty of athletes competing. They can go to the regional or possibly state. Big returners, Peyton Mayfield, who won 2024 Athlete of the Year in the TRC. And he was a state qualifier for this, which was the first time in school history that happened. Tennis, same thing. We got a lot of athletes. They can qualify to district and even state. In the absence of no league play in tennis, scheduling's a little tough, but Coach Brackman, he takes care of most of that and does a good job. He plays some really big schools in tennis, playing Centerville, CJ Tip, places like that, to kind of compare them for tournament play. That's about it for spring. And as far as the TRC, I'm sure you kind of heard about Bethel, the rumors that are going on there. And they made it official about a month ago. They are leaving in 27, 28. So at this point, all the remaining schools are trying to work together to keep the conference intact. That's everybody's goal. There's just a lot of moving parts right now. Nobody knows for sure what's going to happen there. So and that's about it. Unless anybody's got any questions.
Is there any prospects of the schools?
We've talked to some. There's a long list of schools that we want to get after, and Sam's been heavily involved in that as well. And he's even created a PowerPoint to kind of take the schools and show them. So, I mean, one of the big ones right now is Fort Laramie just for football, because they wouldn't compete in the rest of the sports. So that's kind of a temporary Band-Aid to get us to 8th and hope to recruit 2 more to get to 10 and make us a little stronger.
Why just football?
Because they won't leave Shelby County and everything. So in football, I forget, what league are they in?
Like Northwest.
They got to go way forward. So they won't leave Shelby County and the rest of them. And they tried to come into the TRC originally for that reason. They were told no. And now it's like, you kind of need to. Because everything else you could schedule with 7 teams.
They're pretty dominant in football, aren't they?
64 last.
Yeah, they're
5-5.
We would compete with them. I mean, they'd be good. They'd be a top tier team, which is good. I mean, that's what we do instead of playing lower level.
We had 2 common opponents last year between us and Fort Laramie, I think, Versailles and Covington, and we roughly had the same scores.
Yep.
Against both of those.
So hopefully, we've looked at some other schools, so hopefully, 10's a lot better than 8. Because then you could run into this problem again 4 years from now, so.
How many freshman specific teams do you have?
Just basketball.
Just girls
Basketball,
basketball?
basketball.
Boys and girls both?
No, not girls, just boys. So that would be it for freshmen. And I don't see us ever, we're never going to have enough girls to have freshman girls basketball. Or the only other sport that would move close to having freshmen would probably be volleyball. like the numbers of volleyball could dictate that in the future. And a lot of them they're referring to now, it's more, even in basketball, it's all, they call it JVA, JVB, because a lot of schools will move sophomores down and just to have enough to play, so. I mean, most of the teams we played this year, the freshmen probably had sophomores, some juniors, three, so.
Is football ever been close to a freshman team?
Probably the last time was like 2007. Yeah. And I don't think we'll, unless we grow that crazy. I mean, it was normal back in the 90s, I was in school, we probably never had a freshman team.
It seems like there's a decline in participation in sports. Do the numbers actually show that? Do we have less athletes?
We were actually up this year from last year, but I think if you go, let's say you go back 5 years ago, it's going to show less. Especially if you look at the overall number of just the athlete, we have a lot of kids that play every single sport.
Yeah.
So we have, if you look at number of kids playing sports and not playing sport, that's not a good number.
Well, I think that's true everywhere.
Yeah.
I was looking at the track supplementals on the consent calendar. I'm assuming a lot of those, I mean, because you have the head coach, you have assistant. I
Yep.
assume those are more specialized per
Yep.
event.
Yeah, and Meredith does a good job. He kind of breaks down and, hey, I want you to focus on distance runners, you're focused on sprint. And that was one of the things, we couldn't find anybody to do pole ball, so he went out and got his license in that, so he could do that, probably at junior high and high school.
Our supplemental coaching contracts compare as far as numbers to the other schools in our district.
I think we're pretty similar to schools our size. Now, if you look at like, as far as in our league, like Mine East and Northridge are a lot bigger than us. So they have supplemental contracts.
So they have more coaches.
I don't think I think our number of coaches is pretty similar. From what I've seen, what everybody else has, so.
They pay them more.
I mean, we're pretty similar to what I've seen with like Covington. You know, the numbers with them, but Mine East and Northridge is substantially higher.
Anybody else have any questions for Chris?
All right, Chris, appreciate it. Well, musical chairs here. Do you two want to step up to the table or go to the podium, whichever makes you comfortable?
I'll sit in the chair.
Okay. So again, I believe it was the last meeting, we talked a little bit about our cell phone policy. That's gotten a lot of attention in the state. And we have a cell phone policy. It's not as restrictive as maybe it could be. So I had mentioned that there were a lot of student management issues that really began with a problem with a cell phone or access to social media during the day. So Mr. Watson, Mr. Ferks are right at the center of all that on a daily basis. So gentlemen, whoever wants to talk about the student management component of cell phones first, high school or middle school?
I'll go first. I think high school is going to be a little bit different than the middle school. They definitely have a policy in this. Middle school is a little more restrictive than the high school. High school's policy is that during class hours, during the actual instruction, they're not supposed to have their cell phones on unless instructed by a teacher for a variety of reasons or whatever the case may be. They can use their cell phones to research or whatever they need. They are allowed to have it in the hallways as well as during lunch at our current process. But then what we've been seeing a massive increase in is that disruptions during class with cell phones. I went back today and I looked at our disruptive disobedient, which is kind of our catch-all when it comes to discipline. So like if somebody, it ranges from a student mouthing off to a teacher to somebody showing up late to class. So it's a wide variety of catch-all. 67 of the 159 log entries we've had have dealt with cell phones or earbuds in some way. So that's roughly 42% of our log entries that we have received from staff have involved cell phones in the actual verbiage that is written in the log entry. Now, that does not count that, teachers having students turn it in on their desk or warning the kids to put it away, or things that the kids might bring in from the outside. A lot of our issues that we've dealt with that maybe not show up in the log entries are things that happen outside of school and kids bringing in with their cell phones and it spreads like wildfire. So it's been an increasing amount. Most of our disciplines come from sophomores and freshmen. 23 of the 10th graders and 22 ninth graders log entries dealt with some form of cell phone earbud issue. I can see it growing even more, especially with more relevance of the smartwatch and smart glasses. You've all seen that coming out now. That's the next big thing where kids are going to wear their smart glasses to class and record everything that's going on in the bathrooms or in the classroom themselves. So that's the next big wave of potential issues that we'll have to face with those coming more relevant. I don't know if Mr. Ferks has anything else to add from the middle school perspective on that.
Are you folks familiar with log entries and what those are?
Not really.
Not really? Okay, so.
Well, I was going to ask,
Yeah.
I was just going to ask, a teacher, I'm assuming, logs it in.
Correct.
but
So
maybe-
our student information system is Power School, excuse me. And when a teacher submits either a minor or a major offense referral, they use what's called a log entry through that system, which allows us to document the kid, the offense, the consequence that was given, and then so it becomes almost like a step-ladder approach where the more offenses, the more the consequence they're going to receive. So log entries could be a warning, but it could also be a minor or major offense that could lead to a detention or an in-school detention or an out-of-school suspension, etc. As far as log entries in the middle school, we've had more log entries than the high school has this year. So far to date, as of Friday the 14th, we've had a total of 358 log entries. 99 of those log entries have been cell phone related. So roughly 28% of our log entries have been cell phone related. And then 54 times in the 99, a cell phone has been turned into the office, which tells me that a student has been warned more than once in a classroom. Usually the second or third time is when a teacher will ask them to power off the phone, turn it into the they'll turn it into the office, and then Mrs. Black will, in the middle school, she'll call home and have one of the parents stop at the school and pick it up. We figure that's probably the best punishment is to have their parents come pick it up. Some come get it right away, some wait a few days, which is good too. So that's kind of how we deal with it in middle school.
And the log entries, kind of piggyback off that I described with disruptive disobedience, that's just a small percentage of our log entries. I think we're on record pace this year for the 4-year high for high school on log entries and discipline write-ups. I think we're approaching, if I'm right, like 250 at this point, which is, I think, 2 or 3 higher than what we've had at this point in the past 4 years.
Now, day to day, middle school is a little bit different than the high school. We do not allow students to have cell phones in the hallways or earbuds in during the hallways during class changes. The students are allowed to have them at lunch, so we're similar to the high school in that respect.
Do you guys feel like the earbuds are even necessary at all? Like, I feel like with humans, like, you need that human contact, so I'm like, they should just be gone. But
Some kids will claim that listening to music helps them perform better at whatever task they're doing or something along those lines. I don't think they're playing classical music there. I mean, I could be wrong.
I'm sure they are.
I'm sure they're playing Beethoven's Fifth Symphony or something, but yeah, I don't believe they're necessary for what they need to accomplish in the classroom.
Agreed.
So if we were to change a policy, what would you like this policy to say? What would make life easier?
Well, I just read today that LA schools have completely banned phones from their school. And it's not necessarily them bringing, actually, because there's multiple approaches. One is they have like these yonder bags where you put them in there and you lock them up. They're super expensive. But you can also YouTube real quickly how to open them without having the actual magnetic piece and all that stuff. So I know Springfield City had that, and my current guidance counselor, she worked at Springfield and they had it, and kids would break it open all the time and still get their cell phones and things like that. So, I mean, the best case would be them not to bring it at all to school or have it in their locker locked up. That would probably be the best case scenario. But I don't know. I know I'm going to kind of defer to Mr. Firks here a little bit because of his previous stop. He made some waves and at Elida. So I don't know if Mr. Firks would like to expand upon that.
Yeah, we wrote a policy. We wrote a policy last February in Elida. Unfortunately, the governor came out like 2 months later after I wrote the policy. It was approved and said we're getting rid of cell phones or we have a policy. So I wish I would have waited on that because it did cause a little bit of a ruckus. But for the clientele that we had to deal with there, it was probably the best decision we made in that district. Took away a lot of videotaping of inappropriate things, use of phones in the bathrooms. We had a lot of gang activity and fights in that district, and so that led to a lot of fights being videotaped and ending up on Snapchat and every other social media outlet you can imagine. The only thing I wish we'd have added, if we could redo that policy over, was the use of students being able to, which we allowed for medical purposes, especially diabetes, with monitoring their levels and stuff. If you would ask me what would make life easier at the middle school, I would say students can have a cell phone with them. It'd be powered off and placed in their locker during the school day. I think we're fortunate enough here that every student will be given one of these one-to-one devices. So all of their schoolwork can be done on here. From experience, you're going to hear the naysayers say, if we would have a school emergency, because I've heard it, we want to be able to get a hold of our children, their child, ASAP. Law enforcement would also tell you to not be on the phones calling your kids in case of an emergency event. You're going to tie up phone lines. Plus, if there is, for God forbid, ever a serious issue here at any other school, law enforcement's not going to let families on campus until sites are secured. We had a lot more kids having conversations at lunch. We had a lot more kids engaging in dialogue and communication, not just with their heads buried in their phones during lunch. They took care of a lot of the videotaping and inappropriate pictures without school permission of other students, which led to inappropriate photos being posted on social media. We still had challenges. We still had kids that we knew were carrying them around in their pockets. We weren't really going to push the issue on that. We had students that we knew that were taking them into the restrooms and probably using them. We weren't going to go in the bathrooms and monitor kids at all times. You know, if kids had them out, teachers asked them to power them off and turn them into the office. If the child refused for whatever reason, they'd give a phone call to myself or our assistant principal in my last district, and we would come down and escort that student down to the office and have a conversation with them and try to figure out what was going on. A lot of times in that district, we had inappropriate activity going on their phone, which is why they didn't want to give them up. I don't think you have to worry about that too much. So, but you will have families concerned about not being able to get a hold of their children whenever they want to. I always said, I'm not that old, but I didn't have a phone when I was a kid, and I seemed to get along just okay in school. And my parents were able to get a hold of me, and if I absolutely had to, I'd go down to the office and make a phone call, and we allow that here. If kids need to come down to the office and make a call, we let them do so.
Can they send communications from their device outside the school?
I beg your pardon?
Can they send communications through their device outside the school?
You talk about like
Chat.
with this?
Like email or?
They can email, yeah. They're able to do that.
Windows 11 standard install includes a program that Bluetooth connects your phone to your laptop, so they could, as long as their phone is within 30 feet or so of Bluetooth available, if it's in the classroom, they can text from the laptop if they find the app and hook it up.
My wife's an educator at her school. Basically, they have to have it off. They can keep it on them. They have to have it off. They see it. It's whatever, right up or whatever. You know, me personally, I think getting rid of them would be beneficial all around. Because I see kids, again, my kids included, head down in their phones, and kids need to use their time at school, enjoying one another, conversation, and learning. Most time what they're doing on their device is not learning. So that's my perspective on it.
I thought I read one of the Ohio House rules to go to
That was released last year, but it has to be enacted by July 2025. And we have to have a policy in place that restricts cell phone usage. Doesn't say anything about banning, it's restricting heavily cell phone usage.
I saw a headline for it.
We have to have one, which we already have one in place, so we're already compliant. But I guess the conversation is that we need to probably step it up a little bit more than what we currently have in place.
What did your school do about smartwatches?
You talking about previous district?
Yeah.
We included that in there. So I think I provided a copy of what I wrote to Dr. Ritchie. And like I said, it had in there a number of different devices that would fall under that category. I don't know if you saw the copy of it. Maybe I emailed it to you.
I do.
All right. That was included in there as well, but that was before smart glasses became a thing, so that would probably, yeah.
You haven't seen the commercials for those?
Until recently. So, like I said, the only thing that I wish I would have included in that wording, and I think the district that I was at, they added it this year and they've kept it in place after I left, was to make sure parents were aware that kids could utilize their device to monitor for diabetic purposes.
Well, we have a handful of those, I think, at least in high school, I have 2 or 3.
So just add medical exemption on that.
The problem with the smartwatches is they can still do almost everything on that. They can have their phone, and so they'll still text, they'll still try to look up answers or Google stuff or during assessments or.
And not necessarily in our district, but I've heard districts where students will record private conversations and things like that, and then it'll get leaked out, and then whoever that adult individual is could get in trouble. For example, we pull kids in to discuss with them violations of student handbook or whatnot. We have them leave their cell phones out in the office before we pull them in and have a conversation where they can record us, and we are a one-person state. I know our district's a little bit different, but kids will still try to do that type of stuff. So we do our best to make sure that they turn their cell phones in before we have conversations with them.
Well, I would support limiting the ability to have them on during the day. I would want them to come with them to school, because just for the after-school traveling.
Sure.
I like my children to have their phone when they get on the buses and go wherever.
And I just kind of piggyback on what Mr. Firk said. If we see them in their pockets, I'm not going to come up to them and yell at them and go put them in their locker or things along those lines. As long as it's not out, they're not utilizing it. I think that's kind of a double-edged sword when you get to that kind of stuff sometimes.
Yeah, I don't think we'd ever not want kids to have them on them for communication purposes with families. We would just maybe ask them to be powered off and place them in the locker during the school day. Not have them on, if possible.
I mean, there's nothing wrong if a kid has it in their pocket and they see it.
Correct.
And you just go up and say, do you mind putting it in their locker?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't even really address it with them too much. It's noticeable when it's in the pocket. It's just when it comes out, it would be a conversation.
Yeah.
So we didn't push the issue too much last year. When we started, it was probably 50-50 with parents when we first put that in place. I would say after 2 weeks, though, that a lot of those family members came around. Some still didn't, and a lot of the teachers that were not happy with it at first came around a little bit too, because they saw a difference. And what happened there was our quote-unquote log entries went down. We started seeing less discipline issues, a lot of less harassment, bullying behaviors from kids with the use of the phone.
Is that something we want to change mid-year or start the next school year?
Start next school year.
That seems easiest.
I would think that Neola is going to provide some options for us for cell phone policy in this next update. So you'll get an opportunity to first read, second reading, to see what's being proposed. But I'm of the opinion that, like Mr. Brooks just said, it's not necessarily, the having cell phones and school staff having to take them. It's all the other disruptions that they cause, the other student-to-student issues, name calling, rumor spreading, that kind of thing that creates a disruption at school, that we minimize that if they're powered down and secured in a student locker.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Sounds good.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Fellas, thank you. This is the time where you can just walk right out the door if you'd like.
Thank you. Thank you. Brad, do you have anything to add to the super report?
Just if you have questions for me. Otherwise, that's enough.
Moving on, treasurer's report. A, approval of the Board of Education minutes, January 21st, 2025, regular meeting. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Roll call.
Dr. Needleman? Yes. Mrs. Kim Yes. Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes.
Thank you.
B, approval of the January financial report. I recommend approval of the January financial report. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, as you can see at the end of January 31st, at the end of January, so January 31st, 2025, based off of the November 5-year forecast, the general fund balance was just slightly higher than what we were projecting by about $50,000. So we're a little bit under on revenue, but our expenses were lower than we actually anticipated. Again, as I go through this, and we talked about it last month, this is based off of what was approved for the November forecast. What happened after the November forecast was the conversation, the follow-up date that we had with the ESC. So some of these numbers, again, like we talked about last month, there will be an update on the May forecast. So while these are showing, the expenditures are showing within budget right now, they will start to fluctuate a little bit as those bills start to come in. And what happens with the Miami County ESC is they pull from our foundation payment, which is our State of Ohio foundation payment that we receive. And so after the fall update, I did an update with Cindy Hale, the treasurer there, and we'll start to see our foundation payments catching up for what they weren't paying for the first part of the year. So we'll start to see those purchase services start to really ramp up. So again, that happens bi-monthly, and those expenses will start to kind of pull down. You guys have already approved the appropriation increases for them. So that's that. Again, the main thing I just wanted to talk about within the reports was the income tax was pretty on target based off of the November forecast. We already talked about the purchase services and how those expenses will kind of start to go out of line a little bit based off of the November forecast. Supplies and materials, they are under budget, but as I've stated before, I'm kind of leaving that alone for the time being. The district's general fund balance was at $4.5 million, which is right at 1% higher than forecasted. Here's the cash summary. The investment summary, not much has changed. We did, when I was out sick, we did have one mature, and we're dealing with that here in February. It's this the very top one. This one right here, but it'll work itself out here in February. I was down enough and just couldn't control it at the moment. So you can see the graph down here. The blue line is the Star Ohio yield interest rate, and the green line is the average of what is sitting up here in our bonds. So you can see, you can tell exactly where COVID hit, back towards the back part of the graph. You can see it is starting to lower.
That's something we'll consider. Since I've been here, I have been investing more short-term here just because of the cash flow problems that we've been anticipating. So sometimes with shorter maturity dates, these percentages over here will be a little bit lower. So you can kind of see down here, these are the newer ones that we've invested in. You're running at 4s and 5s up here. It's coming back down to 3%. In the 3s.
I have a question. Is those investments coded for like a 3, so the iPhone money?
So all of these funds in here are going to be part of this balance right here, the end of our cash summary. So it can be, they're not necessarily coded, it's just a cash flow. It's just the cash. You can see up here, you can see under these 2 lines right here, both of PI improvement, PI technology. Ignore this negative, it's just I haven't transferred money into the PI technology fund, it's okay. But they're not coded specifically for a fund. See what I'm saying? So they're
not linked to either general or equipment improvement?
No, they're not directly linked. Mm-hmm. No, because if you look, these accounts, so here's your Star Ohio, which is where a majority is sitting at because of the percentage yield. Down here, you've got some funds tied up in the reserves, which these are the bonds, the $171,000. This $1 million, you have to have $1,042,000 in reserve for the debt service on this one. So they're not necessarily tied up. Some of them are. Some of that cash flow is. So here's some of your cash flow right here that I would say is tied up within your PI right now.
If some of the bonds aren't performing as good as the Star Ohio, why are we having those bonds?
That's a good question. Even in my own personal investments, you don't want all of your eggs in one basket. Just to kind of, Justin can attest to that, right? You don't want all your eggs in one basket. You don't want them all tied up in Star because it can fluctuate.
Is there any liability in the Star? They insured?
I would say Star, there's definitely stipulations on the government bonds, but Star Ohio is supported by the state of Ohio, by the Treasury Department. So
it's backstop, isn't it, for schools, as far as liability?
What's that? I don't know what that means.
Well, like, you have FDIC insurance.
Yes.
You put money in a bank, but it's capped, right?
Okay.
I was just wondering, how is the Star account? I'm assuming the state of Ohio backs it.
Mm-hmm.
So that would reduce the risk of having more in it. But that is how it works.
So ever since I've got here, they've kind of kept this this portfolio. We can definitely, like I said, the top one up here, we just had that one mature. We can definitely pull back some of the funds that are in the government bonds and the CDs and flush them into Star. Really just depends on the market. Like I said, you can tell. So some of these up here are coming out of COVID when they were purchased.
I guess where I'm at is if we're daily maturity, so you can buy investments at any time.
Mm-hmm.
So once the ones that are the lower interest rate, like American Express, National Bank, it's going to mature in 2024, September 24. Why don't we just push that into the Star Ohio? And if it's showing a trend where it's going down, then we can look at potentially purchasing. But it seems to be performing as well or better than a lot of the bonds we have.
Yeah,
Or CDs and bonds.
we can definitely evaluate it. Sure, that's not a problem at all. I can take a look back at the history too. Did K, did K reserve this much? I'm not sure if Dave made too many changes on it while he was here. But yeah, we can evaluate it.
Okay.
So we have about 30%. The Morgan Stanley is probably
I got the call sheets.
the star account's come down, hasn't it? Last is at 5.
Yep, you can see it. Yep. Alright, cafeteria fund, it ran right on target. Expenses weren't, they were, let's see here. Revenues were just slightly higher than expenditures, which is the trend that's been happening. And then, of course, all of the disbursements and checks that were cut out of our accounts. I should mention, in these disbursements, you'll see some of these larger amounts in here. For example, this right here. This is payroll and such that's hitting the books, the general books. So we have our own payroll account, but then we have our general account, bank account that we have to expense the payroll expenses. So just for noting. Any questions?
Anybody else? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brewhall?
Yes.
Dr. Engelmann? Yes. Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Mr. Dees?
Yes.
Thank you.
5 other special reports, A, MUEA.
The levy is coming up in May. Is there a timeline or a target that the board wants to meet so that the voters and the public will know what the results will be if the levy doesn't pass?
Yeah, I mean, that's...
We want to have informed voters.
Right, 100%. That's in the works, and hope to have something together soon. By next board meeting.
Before early voting starts, ideally.
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 March 21st.
And
By next.
possibly a special.
Okay.
Usually the Oaks is on there, they're not on there.
I talked to Ramona, she didn't have anything. Okay, I just didn't put it on.
6, agenda confirmation. A, additions and deletions to the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions?
No.
B, approval of the agenda. I recommend approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Brewhall?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Dr. Engelmann?
Yes.
Mr. Dees?
Yes. 7, old business. Do we have any old business? 8, new business. A, Sinclair CCP. Recommend approval of College Credit Plus agreement between Sinclair Community College and the Milton-Union Exempted Village School District, identifying payment rates for the 2025-2026 school year, including summer 2025, fall 2025, and spring 2026. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Dr. Engelmann?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Brewhall?
Yes.
Mr. Dees?
Yes. B, consent calendar. Recommend approval of all matters listed under the consent calendar. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brewhall?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Dr. Engelmann?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mr. Dees?
Yes. 9, other authorizations, resolutions, etc. A, open enrollment. Recommend approval for the Milton-Union Exempted Village School District to participate in an open enrollment option as provided for in State Senate Bill 140 and Ohio Department of Education Rule 301-48-02. This option shall be for the 2025-2026 school year and shall permit the enrollment of students from any Ohio school district. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion?
Is there anything different about this from what we signed last year?
No, the district has to consider its open enrollment policy every year. This is the same that it's been for several years now, that we would accept students from any Ohio school district. It's based on the availability of seats. So typically what we'll do is students that have been open enrolled in previous years, we would anticipate them returning. And so in addition to that, we would have new open enrollment applications that, again, would be based on seat availability moving forward.
I noticed too, like, we cannot deny any child an education if they want to come here unless they've been suspended or expelled for like 10 consecutive days.
10 days, yes.
Is it state law to make it 10 days, or could we lessen that to 5 days? I mean, depending maybe as to why they were expelled
So,
or expelled.
yeah, it's based on, if you do open enrollment, it's based on when applications are submitted and the availability of seats, with the exception of if a student's been, if a student's been suspended for 10 consecutive days, been recommended for expulsion, or if there's a special program that we don't have.
But I'm just saying, you have to stick with the number 10 days.
You do.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what I was curious on. Okay.
Anything else? Roll call, please.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons? Yes. Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Brindle?
Yes.
Mrs. Kadias?
Yes. B, certified settlement. Recommend approval of a settlement agreement with the Milton-Union Education Association regarding conference and planning time for the remainder of the 2024-2025 school year. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
So, it was $460 total.
Not to exceed $460.
Over how many minutes?
737 minutes.
Okay.
Or 12 hours. That's listed on the second attachment that's on there.
And then that's divided amongst 7.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 staff members.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brindle?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. 10, board reports. A, legislative and student achievement. Linda Hinkleman.
On the legislative side, I think it's good news. Governor DeWine gave his final Ohio Governor executive budget proposal, and that include continuing phase-in of the fair school funding through years 5 and 6, which there had been a little bit of a hint that maybe it wasn't going to happen, so it's good that it's in his budget. Made some other interesting proposals, I think one of which would be a big change is creating a school grant program so that we could do driver's ed training at schools. We'll see how that plays out. I will say, having a 16-year-old, it is expensive and difficult to schedule all this stuff to get a teenager their license, but yeah, I guess we just have to see.
Well, back in the day, they
Back
used
in
to.
the day. Did you hear me? I was
No.
like, back in the day, we used to have it.
It's not the driver's part. They did, the driver's part? They'll be in a car.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can afford that.
They'd have to get a lot of grants. Yeah, otherwise maybe creating something new for high vision screening for K through 3 students. I think he wants to continue funding school choice programs at a similar level. And did earmark funds for the science and reading, literacy coaches, so it looks like science and reading is going to continue being a push. But all of these have to get turned into budget bills and passed, I think, to actually happen, so we'll see. There's a lot of different House and Senate bills right now that would affect education, but I think they're all just got proposed, so it's probably not worth paying attention to.
Even continuation of the Fair Funding Act, is that,
I guess I don't know.
do you know, Carrie?
So I read something briefly on this. We are sitting, it's with either OSBA or OS, but I can't remember which one. They are going to do a webinar, and I was hoping it'd be before the meeting, and they, of course, schedule it for afterwards. So I plan on having another update for you guys. I mean, it's cautiously optimistic. And I know you had asked when President Trump came into office more on the federal funding, he had froze the federal reimbursements, which means, like our IDEA funds, our 572s. The next day he quickly pulled that back a little bit, so we were good.
But the future of federal funding is up in the air.
Yep.
Is that a fair statement?
I think anything is up in the air for the next 4 years, but yes, there's definitely some rumblings that are happening out of DC.
I think it's fair that we don't necessarily know the implications for schools.
Yeah. Okay. B, policy update myself and Lori. Yeah, I mean, we obviously discussed potential policy change tonight with the principals, something to look at. Had several readings, but nothing. Do you have anything, Brian?
We meet with our Neola rep again March 11th. And the update might actually already be available in board docs if we want to go in and take a look.
Still NAR, right?
Correct.
So when the policies are getting updated, who goes in there and, I guess, marks them out, like what's going out and what's getting put in there?
They do.
Oh, they do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
they do that.
Okay.
Based on, what their council recommends, and they keep track of all the different legislation,
Okay.
federal, state, that would impact a school board policy. They do that. Sometimes there are policies where we would have a choice. Maybe there are 3 different options, or maybe a policy mentions maybe 5 points, and then it would leave space for, other things that a Board of Education wants to consider. So those are the kinds of things we talk about with Norm when he's here. I don't think there were any of those last time where we had to make a choice of how we wanted something to read.
I don't think so. I think he, remember he forgot to update all the way
Yeah,
through. And I think that
there's
was-
one that we missed. Yep, at least one.
and then we'll figure one out.
Okay. C, building and transportation, myself and Justin. I don't have anything in the building and transportation.
We do have one driver who's
Yeah, I saw that.
who's doing, as you saw in the consent calendar, he's about midway through his onboard training. So,
And the possibility of another one coming back.
doubtful.
Midway through, how much longer then?
you have to do 30 hours, I would say he's probably about halfway. He's probably at 10 to 15, I would say. Our lone OBI just returned to work this week, so he'll be working with her, and then we also have one of our current drivers who will be training to become a trainer. So it's going to be, it'll be all one session. So we have our OBI, we'll have someone training to be an OBI while training.
Have we had any more applicants?
Not at this time. I've had people inquire. I've sent them as much information as I could, email communication, and getting. Yeah, I'll think about it.
DMB CTC Jim Allball, as you can see, the minutes from the CTC meetings are attached.
Organizational meeting. That's what you see there is the January 14th organizational meeting.
I did not read them and extract information, so I'll let you guys do that for yourself, piece of cheese. Milton-Union Education Foundation, Jess?
We are ramping up. We're going to be meeting this Thursday, and I believe I shared with you guys, we have the Big Bulldog Bash, March 15th. Pancakes, an art show, games, face painting. It will be a really great day. There's a flyer, or you can go to nueducationfoundation.org and look up the pricing, if you wish. And then in the summer, just to mark your calendars down for Friday, June 6th, we have our Bulldog Golf Classic at Homestead, and hopefully we pack the house on that as well. And anyway, all this money goes towards senior scholarships. We give away usually 3 or 4 scholarships and classroom grants. And we do have teachers still writing us throughout the year, thanking us for the classroom grants, or they will show the foundation like what they have used that money for. So it is really cool to see, and the teachers are using and buying good things for the kids to further the education.
It's a substantial amount of money that they give out each year to the teachers, staff, I think, around 15,000.
Yep.
So it's,
yeah, and the things that the teachers purchase, I mean, they would not go buy them with their own money. But yeah, it's a great thing.
F, Audit and Finance Representative, Justin and Lloyd. Anything? No? All right, G, Facility Complex Committee, and that would be myself. I don't have anything unless Curtis has anything to add.
Tennis courts, I have been checking.
We're approaching the time to see if the work we had done in the fall, late summer, early fall, will pay off to where we can get our tennis courts repaired and resurfaced. It's much overdue. So the resurfacing companies advised we figure out our water issue, so time will tell here in the next couple months if the work that was done.
Have you noticed any, I mean, obviously we've had a few warmer and wet events. Have you noticed if there's been any water standing?
I have not, but from my understanding, it's really dependent on what the water table is underground. So we're really going to find that out in the spring when the water table's not highest.
My fingers are crossed. I did go out there on a warm day where I thought it could rise, and I didn't see it.
Because the work,
It's good.
if it didn't, it's more extensive. It's the work that was done is set up to where if we have to go extensive, they can tie into that existing system. So hopefully what's there works so that in essence we don't have to rip up the tennis courts to put in drainage under the tennis courts.
Okay. 11, information and discussion items. A, general information and updates. We don't have any general information or updates.
Nothing this evening.
Okay. 12, board announcements, upcoming meetings, February 18, 20.
Drop down.
Yep, sorry. Regular board meeting, Monday, March 17, 2025, 6 p.m. in the board conference room. Everybody got that?
I will not be there.
We won't be here.
All right.
Sorry about the confusion with our joint meeting with the council members and the township trustees. I did start an email chain with Union Township and Jeff Sheridan to see what days would work. The township prefers March 20th, but if that day doesn't work for the board, then I can just tell them, hey, we're going to need to consider some other days. So it's our turn, we're hosting, and so the question is, you want to have food? You can think about that. You have time to think about it, but March 20th, does that work?
It works for me.
So it'll just
I'm
be a
going to
matter.
say yes.
All right. It'll just be a matter of now that if that date works for a few of the council
It
members.
looks like it's going to
What time is
work for
it?
me.
6.
You don't mind setting a calendar invite?
I will. I'll do it this evening.
It keeps me in order. Okay. 13, executive session. Recommend approval to adjourn to executive session for purposes authorized under Board of Education Policy 0166 and ORC 121.22G1 to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual, or ORC 121.22G4 to prepare for, conduct, or review negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning compensation or other terms, conditions of employment, and ORC 121.22G5 matters as required to be kept confidential by federal law or regulations or state statutes. There will be no action taken after the Board of Education exits executive session. Invitees will be
Curtis, Katie, Carrie, me, that's okay?
time entered into executive session.
No action falls.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the best.
We had to take a motion to go in. So the motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Kress.
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman.
Yes.
Mrs. Jim Parsons.
Yes.
Mrs. Greenbaugh.
Yes.
Mr. Dees.
Yes. Y'all for coming.
For the